Hi, it's Pam Warwick, and welcome to the Professional Learning Series in Mathematics. We are going to start with Session 1, Planning with Integrity and Pacing with a Purpose. Each of the sessions will have 2 parts, each 30 minutes in length. After that, you will have the opportunity to do the reflection and take attendance. So let's begin. Planning with integrity and pacing with a purpose. First of all, my discussion points are alignment and using the math curriculum. Most of you have brand new math curriculums this year, and it takes some time getting used to the text, the digital tools, working and planning through a new textbook and using the lessons. So I would assume that most of you have been going at a slower pace than usual. So that is why we are starting with pacing and alignment. After we talk about that, we will focus on the purpose of looking at priority standards. It's to pick up that pacing and be purposeful about what we present in the classroom. After that, of course, you know what I'm going to talk about, mastery. Yes, creating and planning differentiated mathematics, or simply stated, teaching to mastery for all. So alignment, what is alignment? And don't I have it already? Sure, I have a new textbook and it has like 17 modules, and I'm going module 1 and module 2 and module 3. Isn't that what alignment is? Well, that's the alignment that the textbook puts there. And so when we look at priority standards and what needs emphasis and what is extra and what is additional, our textbooks don't always give the emphasis that we need to align with the standards. So that's why it's important that we take a look at alignment. There are actually, 2 types of alignment. I bet you already know. Think about it. All right, I'm going to put it on the screen. Did you guess? I bet most of you did. Yes, there's horizontal alignment and vertical alignment. We're going to take a real close look at both of those. First, horizontal alignment. It actually is ensuring that curricular objectives, instruction, and assessment, whether local, district, or even high stakes, which we would call regents in the state, are matched across the grade level. So not going outside of grade level. For instance, if you're teaching 4th grade or 6th grade or kinder or 8th grade, you would only look at the grade level you're working with. That's the horizontal alignment. The questions you ask yourself at that time, well, at the time that you're looking at your grade level, you say, do I know what objectives to teach at my grade level? Well, of course. At the top of each lesson, like lesson 1, module 1, it says the objective. Okay, that is one way of looking at it. But we want to ensure when we're talking about alignments, leaning toward priority standards, and that's where we're going to go, that we know that what those objectives, the emphasis to put on those, that if it's priority, additional, or supporting standard. So that's one question. When we look at that, we know exactly what that means. The second question we ask ourselves in horizontal alignment is, when do I teach each of these objectives? And if we let the textbook do the talking to us, well, if you're on module 3 and there are 19 modules and it's January, okay, we won't go there. Right, that's why we have to look at pacing and purposeful pacing. So I think you see why we have to have this conversation today. And the third question is, how do I know if my students have mastered the objectives taught? We will spend a lot of time talking about that this semester. Some today, some next time. Even in session 3, we'll be talking about mastery and how do we know that students have mastered that. So a little bit deeper into alignment is we mentioned vertical. Now we mentioned horizontal. Now we're talking about vertical. Vertical alignment is ensuring that curricular objectives are specific and build upon each other across the grade levels. Priority objectives are mastered and learning gaps are eliminated. Okay, so across the grade levels, why would I need to do that? Well, let's just say I am teaching 4th grade. The heart of 4th grade is the 4 operations, right? Yes, it is. So when students get to 5th grade, they should carry with them the 4 operations. And then you know what happens in 5th grade. We take those whole numbers and break them all up and make them decimals and make them giant numbers and make them fractions. And so it's important that we know those operations in the 4th grade in order to do that. That when we have that conversation, it's exactly what vertical alignment is. So when I look at vertical alignment, what questions do I ask myself about that? Do I know what objectives are priority standards and is a prerequisite for the next grade level? Well, if we look at our priority standards, those are the prereqs. That's a giant clue. And when we see them all coded green, and I know some of you were with me last year and you saw that because we really focus on that, then those are the standards that students need to go to the next grade level or the next after that. The second question is, am I using standard math vocabulary? Now, I have a funny slide about that. I'm not going to step on any toes because I've said some of those things too. We'll talk about that in a moment and we'll just quickly go on by it. The third question is, do I know if students have mastered priority standards at a current grade level? Wait a minute, you just asked me that. You asked me about mastery. Yeah, do we master at this grade level? And when we look at vertical alignment, that's how we identify the gaps. When you say, let's say you're teaching 3rd grade and you said, these kids can't skip count or whatever. Oh, what you just said was they don't have a priority, a prereq, a priority standard from the grade level before. That's why we start to talk about mastery at each grade level. That helps us identify the gaps and target that gap so that kids can be successful grade level to grade level. And we won't even say grade level to state testing to grade level. State testing, all that is really a check to see, are kids ready to move to the next grade level? It's not something that makes us frightened. It's supposed to make us confirmed that we know our kids know what they need to do, our need to master the content to be successful. That's the key word, successful at the next grade level. And when we talk about mastery across grade bands, that sub-question is, are there interventions, differentiation, small group practice in place so we can target those gaps? Now, let's dig deep for a moment. You said, well, didn't we dig deep already? No, that was just the intro to this. Let's go back and look at horizontal. All right, horizontal. Alignment to pacing, purpose, and priority. So I have my new math curriculum. Isn't this horizontally aligned? All right, let's all say yes. Now let's all say but. Okay. Yes, it is. But what's the but? Well, the next step is pacing. Remember when we talked about at the beginning of this session? I said you've got new math curriculum and it took some time to learn the lessons and learn the layout and how do we do the digital platform? And so we slowed down. Natural. Remember, I'm an Army wife, so my public school teaching and private school teaching was 13 school districts in 5 states and 2 countries. Yeah, so as I was learning, I had to slow down, and then I had to pay attention to what is really important and put emphasis there. So that's the but part. Yeah, yes, it's aligned, but we need to look at pacing. So what are the pacing questions? Do I know what objectives to teach at my grade level? You do. But which ones need extra time and emphasis? Well, that's the priority stuff. We need to look at that and say, what is really critical at this grade level that at the next grade level, they will not be successful in mathematics without it? Now, when we always look back at literacy, we know that. We easily say that's an emerging reader, a developing reader, or a struggling reader, or they don't have decoding skills. Well, that's the same way with numeracy and operational fluency and problem solving in mathematics. So that's what we need to look at. And what do we know? How do we know how to do this? Well, we have two places to look. All right, if you know me, you've been here before. All right. So these objectives, one, achieve the core, and the other one, the crosswalks. Well, let's go to achieve the core real quickly. All right, it won't take but a second. Oh, it looks like I'm already started, right? Okay, so since I'm just doing fourth grade because it's kind of the middle of where we're talking about. In the K-8 story. Why am I looking at the K-8 story? Vertical alignment, remember that? All right, in part 2, I'll only do horizontal alignment with you, but here we are. First of all, look at this little green thing. What happens when you open it up? Have you ever done that before? The standard represents major work for the grade. As a reminder, 65 to 85% of instructional time over the course of the year should be focused on the major work of that grade. Did you know that? That's what priority standards are. That's why pacing is important. And so as we look at what objectives to teach, we have a place to go. Okay, and so as we start to look at our independent grade levels in part 2, when you're looking at the horizontal alignment, this is where we're going to go, and this is how we make the decision on that. All right. The second place, because that gives us big picture. All right. And the next place is the crosswalk. And if you know me, you've been here before as well. All right. And you'll have all these links. You know, I always put them in your handouts, and now that we have a Google Classroom, you'll have a list of resources. I'm so excited about that, by the way. And so I didn't want to go there. I wanted to go to the fourth grade crosswalk. Touch of the finger there. All right. So the thing about the crosswalks, does it say major? Does it say additional? Does it say supporting? No. What your crosswalk does, and because we're at Achieve the Core, we know that the 4 operations with whole numbers are the operations in algebraic thinking, is a major cluster. Then we know that this is. And so we come here when we are planning our independent lessons to really dig deep within that objective. So Achieve the Core gives you big picture. It gives you which is major, which is priority. And then we come to the cluster to get deep into each specific objective. All right, so I think you got this. And you'll have time to explore. And now that we're digitized and Google Classroom connected, you can do it at your leisure. And you'll have all the time that you need to do that. All right, so if you're looking at Achieve the Core and you say, all right, I have this, I remember, I've looked at these before, or some teachers say, this is my first year, I've never seen this page before in my entire life. Well, I will show you how to find it. In part 2, we'll go specifically to when we're talking just about your grade level and find it. But you notice the major clusters, or what? Priority standards in fourth grade. Here we are, the 4 operations that we just looked at in the crosswalk. And then place value, we know this, place value, fractions, oh my goodness, it comes on the scene in third grade. Oh, so if we do not have equivalence, right, that's vertical alignment. Fraction equivalence comes for the third grade. And if that equivalence in the denominator comes from skip counting, which is in second grade. All right, so we start to get the idea of why these kinds of things are really important. Vertical alignment and horizontal alignment are very important. All right, so we're still in horizontal. We're looking at 1 grade level. But I just want to give you some big picture ideas. So pre-K to 2, we make sure that major clusters or the priority standards have emphasis. That means we're going to make sure when we're looking and talking about assessments that these are the ones that we give extra emphasis. That when we do those assessments, and we'll talk about that in a moment, how do we know that they have mastered that? And then grades 3 through 8, making sure that these are taught before the regents. And that is pacing. All right, that's pacing the curriculum. And the third question in our horizontal alignment is, how do I know if my students have mastered the objectives taught? Well, let me give you some ideas. All right, one is observable performance. That's really big. Let's just call it authentic assessment. It's authentic. We see them do it, not we saw their homework. No, first of all, we don't know. That's another session. We don't even know who does homework, right? Okay, back to observable performance. Authentic. We see them do the performance. We see them do the task. We hear them explain their problem. We hear them talk about it. So it's an individual that can show you, demonstrate for you, communicate to you what they know. That's one way. The second way is classroom informal assessments. Informal formatives are exit tickets, a classroom project, or even a quiz. Now, I will talk to you about teacher-made quizzes. They're okay, but that would make it informal. Okay, we need to know the difference between informal and formal. But that's one way. Then the final way is, of course, the formal assessments. The section, the unit, the module, test, assessment. iReady is formal. State assessments. In other words, if it is published, if it is professionally made, it is a formal assessment. And you say, well, I'm using exit tickets that align with the lesson because I'm using Eureka and they have exit tickets. It's an informal assessment at the end, but the test question itself and the exit ticket is formal. And that's because it was made specifically by a diagnostician aligned with that lesson. All right, and that's kind of free. All right. Now, where are these? Where do I keep all of this information? Well, authentic assessments usually in a portfolio, and we might even have a portfolio for priority standards. We might track growth and outcomes of exit tickets. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to do, but you know, math girl here, I track everything. That's why I love baseball. We just track everything. All right. And then formal assessments, of course, that's the existing data. And one thing that I'd like to start talking with you about is your iReady data. So that might be one thing that we look at together. All right. Remember this? Horizontal, vertical. You've got it. So we really spent a lot of time talking about horizontal in those questions. Let's do the same thing with vertical. All right, remember, across grade level, prereqs, identifying the learning gaps, and it ends in mastery also. Whole name of the game is mastery. Do they have it? Do they not have it? And what do we do when they don't? So the first question in vertical alignment is, do I know what objectives are priority standards? And is this a prereq for the next grade? Remember I talked about fourth grade and the 4 operations? Those are prereqs for fifth. Well, let's talk about kindergarten. One-to-one correspondence. They're the only ones that have objectives with CC, cardinality, and counting. All right, so they teach the counting system. They teach the sequence of numbers, the one-to-one correspondence, the putting together, the taking apart. So those are prereqs to first grade. And if we don't, I heard some first grade teachers say, my kids still can't count, or they rote count. What did they vote without the one-to-one correspondence? So we need to be able to identify those things. That's vertical. So where should we start with that? I would always suggest know the grade ahead of you and know the grade below you. Not every lesson, okay? Don't start that. Just be cognizant of what's priority the grade level before, so you can identify gaps. Be cognizant of the priority the grade level after you, so you can teach to mastery and have those kids ready for the next grade. Okay, and I'm gonna hit home in a minute. Am I using standard math vocabulary? And do I know if students have mastered priority standards at a current grade level? Are there interventions and differentiation in place? All right, you know the deal. All right, so on that first, the ones you need to know, the grade level before and the one afterwards, where do I go? Achieve the Core is always where you go. It's a great place. It has incredible alignment, and I'll show you that before we leave today. And is this a curriculum? Is this a curriculum map? No, it's not. It's not. Achieve the Core is not a curriculum map. So the curriculum map is in your math series. And so how do I match those? Well, that's the work we have to do. We have to make sure we're teaching the right thing and we pace it there. All right? Ah, there's one right there. Yeah, you thought I was going to make you go find one. No. Now, this one is Eureka because it's nice and colorful, and that's the reason I pulled it up. But whether you're using HMH or Envision or Eureka, you're going to pull it up. And so because I've been saying fourth grade, I just pulled this one, and you can see, okay, here are the things in the objectives. They're not things. They're objectives in grades 3, and you see where they're going in grade 5. And that's another place to go. Now you see that is specific to your curriculum. And so then we go to Achieve the Core to see, are we doing that? And are we look at those tasks and Achieve the Core for the priority standards. Okay, let's just skip on through this, right? Nope, I'm going to say it out loud. Am I using standard math vocabulary? Well, where do I find it? Well, if you talk like your textbook, you're doing standard math vocab. The math text or the curriculum you're using, no matter what you have, if it's Eureka or HMH or something else, all right, Envision, Pearson. If you talk like that book, you have standard math vocabulary. Okay, let's skip on down and let's say it real quickly. All right, no toe stepping. Common non-standard math terms are like this. Let's just get rid of it. Okay, that's kind of talking about subtraction. Sometimes it's talking about a variable. Let's just get rid of it. No, I can say that. Let's cross cancel it. No, we would say means extremes. All right, let's flip it. That's reciprocal. Let's plug it. That's substitution. Let's just mark it out. Or one of my favorites, keep, change, flip. And I've said them all right? I have said every single one of those, but I'm reformed. I speak standard math vocabulary. And I'm not going to labor on this. I want you to do that too, because none of the common non-standard math terms, they're not in your textbook, and they're not an assessment, and they're not a math vocabulary word. Enough, right? Next slide. Do I know if students have mastered priority standards at that current grade level? Are there interventions, differentiation, small practice in place for gaps in learning? We'll spend a lot of time talking about differentiation in part 2, because there are specific strategies that we need to do. But where do we go? You know where we always go. We go to Achieve the Core, and I'll take you there in just a sec to find out some stuff. So how do we teach mastery for all? How does mastery even happen? Well, it happens with conceptual understanding. Now, conceptual is, here's the non-common math term that I would use. They own it. They own that skill. And if you own something, you own your car, you own a pair of shoes, you wear them anywhere, right? Well, if kids own a skill, they're going to use it on the subway, at the grocery store. They're going to use it. They're going to use it in their home. They're going to use it in their real life. That's what conceptual understanding is. I understand it without a shadow of a doubt. And what happens when I understand it without a shadow of a doubt? The next bullet is I have retention. That means it's filed away in my neocortex, and anytime that I need it, I can bring it forward. Don't have a problem. I didn't memorize it. You know, that's why memorization and rote memory got a bad rap when Common Core came, because we retained it, but we necessarily didn't own it. We didn't have conceptual understanding. And then if we can do those things, you can transfer that skill to other problems. So if, like 3 weeks from now, you've been teaching division, and then I have a multiplication problem, I won't forget it. I'll be able to do it. And I transfer the skill to other places in my real life. It's just a great thing. So I wanted to show you this before, because we talked about it so much. I just wanted to show you what vertical alignment really looks like. All right, I know it's the craziest thing. It's vertical alignment and horizontal format, so don't get me going on it. So this teardrop thing, and I'm going to take you to the live page. I like the live pages. All right, so the teardrop is where I'm looking. I'm going to bring you up here. I'm at a major cluster in 4th grade, operations and algebraic thinking, and it's to interpret a multiplication equation or comparison. Great. And I zoom in. So I say, my kids can't do this one. They can't do that. So where do I go? Look at this. Here's a 3rd grade skill. I need that. I need these other 3rd grade skills. Is there anything before that? I'm going to slide this. I was going to slide the screen over. I'll use my mouse there. Look, there's a couple of 2nd grade skills that I need. That's where we start to create those interventions and create that. You don't have to go back and teach the entire 3rd grade. Can't do that. Don't have time. And we don't need it. And so, and then this is why it's priority. You see where it's going? My goodness gracious, this one tiny little objective, how important is he? Then look at those NFs. That's your fraction stuff. So if I can't interpret a multiplication equation and compare, then guess what I can't do? I'm going to struggle with fractions. And then here's ratio and proportion in 6th grade, number sense and measurement. My goodness gracious. That's the heart of vertical alignment. And that's why I had to take you there. And that's why I had to tell you that it's so important. Now, you are ready for part 2, but I want you to shut down and think about all the things we've talked about with vertical and horizontal alignment, and then sign in and do part 2. thank you for your time, and I've really enjoyed it being with you.